Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor. So excited to be with you on Monday. I messed up. I've been setting up my new setup, and I had a video that was supposed to be up early. Those of you who followed me on Twitter, you got to watch it first. Sorry I didn't send it out. I don't even know if you're going to get both these notifications at the same time now. Hopefully you will. But lots of stuff came in today. First of all, over the weekend, you guys were sending me so many tips. Thank you. Thank you to all the tips. Yes, more bones were found at the reserve, as well as a water bottle that was probably Gabby's, a noose. All this stuff came in, but is it all legit? I'm not buying it. In fact, I just posted a video. You can go look at my theories there. What I really want to focus on first here is this interview that so many of you sent to me with Ashley Banfield that is crazy. It's crazy, guys. So Ashley Banfield, hold on, where is it? I had it here, and now it's gone. Ashley Banfield was fighting attorney Stephen Bertolino. Here it is.
That family is important. What date?
Here we are. We're going to go through this interview. We may watch it a little faster just to try and get through it all. But this was a one-on-one with the Laundrie's attorney, and man, did they go to battle. It was kind of crazy to watch this, and so many of you were sending me this clip. I want to make sure we can go through it together because just like we did the last interview, there's a lot to catch. There's a lot to catch. Now, they spoke a little slow in the beginning, so I'm changing the playback speed so we can watch this a little bit faster. But my first thing I want to go through with this is this beat by beat. We're going to watch it together. If you missed it, it's okay. We'll watch it together. If you already saw it, it's all good. I'm going to offer you my commentary, and hopefully together we'll be able to give this some insight because Stephen Bertolino messes up again big time. Now, you got to remember, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but Stephen Bertolino is a real estate attorney, not a criminal attorney. And so the problem is here, he keeps assuming he knows what he's doing. And I just got off the phone with Christopher Melcher, who I was calling. That's why we're a couple minutes late, because I wanted to get his information about this case and particularly what happens in this interview about client privilege. And Melcher agreed with Banfield here, and we're going to break it down for you. But long story short of it, Bertolino once again caught and in trouble. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to also update the Alec Baldwin show later in the live feed, as well as I will talk about the bones and everything further. A separate video. Apologies, I didn't get them both. I meant to hit the button and I didn't, but you'll be able to watch it either after or later. So hopefully you'll check out both pieces of content today. But let's get to this main event today because I want to go through this battle with Ashley because I think she did a good job. I think she did get a little aggressive at times, but I think she did it for the best reasons. Amy Smith, thank you so much for the support. Banfield killed it in this interview. I was seriously hoping you would report on this interview today. Thank you for bringing this one front and center. You got it, because look, the lawyer's the only thing we got left to figuring out what we're going to find out about the truth about this case. And every time Bertolino speaks, we get a little bit more. And this interview was very revealing. Now, before I play it, the most noticeable thing I saw was the fact that clearly someone spoke to him. Clearly someone spoke to him and said, dude, you can't keep speaking to these, especially these female reporters, so crazily like you have been, because it looks awful. And so it does feel like he got some notes and was, at least it starts calmer, but throughout the interview, Ashley's not having it and keeps pushing, and the heat starts rising. Now, I'm going to be fair on this one. You may not like my take on a couple of things here, because I do think Bertolino was pushed against the wall on a couple points where I do think it was a little bit unfair. That said, I don't like this guy. He's lying. And I think she caught him several other times that I think it was kind of fun to watch him squirm, if I'm being honest. That's just my 2 cents. But let's break this down together, shall we? Now, first, Maximilian. Thank you, Maximilian. Keep up the great work. Next Wednesday is my 29th birthday. Well, happy almost birthday, Max. And then Nancy Champagne. Love that name. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, peeps. She's right. And then Michelle Natel. This was the best interview yet. She had all of her ducks in a row, just waiting for him to say something different than what he had previously said. I hope she calls him back today. I would love to know the answer to that last question. Oh, we are going to get there. Holly Weiss also, the law enforcement couldn't even find him because of water. Then water went and Chris found items. Why were Chris's pants wet from knees down to after, showing the law enforcement items? Anyone find this odd? Oh, Holly, there is so much odd, and we're going to get through all of it. Don't you worry. Pamela Bruns also spent all weekend watching old videos from Popcorn Planet stuff. The Alternate, the Nerd Report. It's been amazing. Well, awesome. That's so awesome of you, Pamela. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the members. Zach became a member overnight. I appreciate you guys. All right, so I just want to make sure I caught up on some of these early chats. I will always get to all the chats as you send them. There's a pinned comment link. If you want to have your comment read on the show and get your thoughts and theories in, that's the best way to do it. You can also follow the Linktree link to get all the information. All right, now that I got all that all the way out of the way, sorry, I guess we already need slow mode again. I'm going to put the slow mode. Let's start this interview, shall we? Oh, sorry.
Ended, a whole new chapter in this saga began. The questions that have been so confounding. Why did Brian leave his fiancée in Wyoming? What was his state of mind before he left home for the reserve? And what, if any, role did he play in the death of Gabby Petito? Fortunately, I'm joined by the man who has a lot of those answers, possibly, the attorney for the Laundrie family, Stephen P. Bertolino. Mr. Bertolino, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you've known the family for decades, so this is an emotional time for them, probably for you as a friend, but you're also, their attorney, so I'm very thankful that you're here to answer questions on their behalf. And I'd like to just start with the simple. When did you become involved with the Laundrie family as their attorney pertaining to this particular case?
Yes, good evening, Ashley, and thank you for having me. I would say that was on September 11th.
So you didn't speak
September 11th.
with Brian or Roberta or Chris between September 1st, when he arrived back in Florida, and September 11th, 10 days later?
I can tell you I didn't say that. What I can tell you is any conversations I had with Brian, Chris, and Roberta would be privileged and confidential. What you asked me was when did I become involved for this particular case, and it was on September 11th.
Okay. First off, sorry, I had to speed it up, but I'm sorry that one was speed. We're gonna create a little document here, and a thanks to Puff, who's been helping me as well with this document. In fact, actually, hold on. Sorry, bear with me. I thought I had it prepped
so then presumably
here.
Before September 11th, if you had...
Hold on. Sorry. Bear with me here. So I have it here. Okay. So thanks to Puff for helping me. We're going to put all this information in this because I want to get this timeline correct. So, and there's also some time codes I'm going to be here. So in fact, let me put this over here so I can work on it while we're watching. But this is, I think, an important piece of information because he changes the timeline like 100 times, guys. He changes the timeline so often that, I mean, of course we already knew this, but he just said he was not their client. He was not their lawyer. Not their lawyer. I'm writing this down. So till 9/11. Okay. Now that date's important, according to Stephen Bertolino, right? Now he came home on the 1st, so she's pressing. She's like, "So you didn't talk to them at all?" Well, I had privileged conversations with all of them. That's going to come back because he just said it. I had privileged conversations with all of them. The reality is you can't have privileged clients with people who are not your client. And you can't be clients, have both Brian and the parents all be clients and have privileged information. You can't rep all of them together is what the big problem is here. And I verified this with Christopher Melcher. Unless he does somehow rep them all, and there are some apparent legal loopholes and things that could now come into play that he might have to do because he said this. The reality is he's actually already misspoke and Ashley knows it, and it's going to play later in the interview, and I wish she had done it sooner. But it's going to play later in the interview because this is the most important part of this interview is the fact that the conversations he had with all three were not privilege. And I just verified it with Christopher Melcher, our attorney. Privilege, guys. You got to understand how this works. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm going to try and get him later when he has more time to break this down with me again, because I think this is important. Privilege is when you speak to your client in private. No other person can be there. It is when you have privileged information from attorney to client. Now, who's the client? He's going to try and play like, well, the parents and everybody were the clients. It was everybody. But the reality is he's not a criminal defense lawyer. He doesn't understand how this works. He does real estate. And he's helping a friend, probably because they didn't want to pay for a lawyer and they didn't know what else to do. So because he's helping a friend, he doesn't understand the number one rule you learn in law school for criminal defense, which I've now confirmed with multiple attorneys, is privilege. And you cannot have other people in the room when you're getting the story from your client. That is privilege. Now, if he had a conversation with all three people, he then, therefore, has lost the client privilege. And yes, anything said in those conversations is fair to share. So that reveal that Ashley got is pretty much the spoiler alert here, is the biggest thing. And at the very end of the interview, she presses him hard about it. And we're going to do that. But I want that in your head as we're watching, because you're going to hear her press that a little bit harder about, well, who was in the room, what dates, et cetera, because she knows. She's no dummy. She is no dummy, Ashley, and good for her, because she knows any conversation that all three of them have is no longer privileged. So she so smartly said, all right, so when were you the lawyer? And then you didn't. So on the 11th, he's now said he's the lawyer. So then she's confirming again. So, and again, I wish this was under oath. It's not. So he can say whatever the hell he wants, and it doesn't matter. And almost these attorneys and everyone are giving him sort of practice, if you will, of stuff that sort of isn't on the record, and he's allowed to say whatever the hell he wants. Once he's under oath, that's when it matters. And sadly, she's not a judge. This isn't under oath. But it's nice to catch him so we know that he's a liar, and we already knew that because he's allowed to lie as a lawyer. Anyway, the point being, this is an important part here because this really says a lot. This says a lot because anything he said with all those people is now no longer privileged. So remember that as we keep going forward.
Conversations with them, say September 1st to September 11th, those 10 days, those would not be privileged because you hadn't been retained as counsel?
Well, that's not true either, because I've been the Laundrie family attorney for well over 20 years. So any conversations I have with them with respect to legal matters would be privileged and confidential.
So right there, he's saying, I've been the Laundrie's family attorney for over 20 years, so anything I say with them is privileged and confidential. Now, this is where things get complicated. He has made it clear he's repping Brian. Now, he's also, as Christopher reminded me, he's gone and done interviews where he's revealed things that the parents have said, who are, in theory, I guess, his clients. He's really like unclear on who his clients are and everything else, and that's where this is getting sticky because no, he's wrong. You can't just rep them all the same way. There's a lot more at stake here, and he's just being loose with the rules. And so he thinks, well, no, it's all privilege, but the reality is, no, it's not. It's not all privilege. I mean, it's not all privilege when you put them all together, because you got to understand. You got to understand that this. I see your message, Puff. Hold on, check it. This is not privilege if you speak to more than one person, because you can't rep Brian and the parents. There's multiple conflicts of interest there. Is why that's a thing. So if the parents are there, privilege is gone. He's wrong. Now, he could rep the parents too, I'm told, and I'll get Christopher on here at some point so we can actually understand that a little bit better. However, that's a very important part.
So when Brian came home to Northport on the 1st, as is evidenced by a card reader, a license plate reader, seeing the white van coming home, how did you have your first engagement with the family? Was it a family meeting? Was it a conference call? Like, how did you first connect with them after he had returned?
Again, any conversation I've had with Chris, Roberta, and Brian, was by telephone. But the dates and what we discussed are all attorney-client privileged and confidential. And I'm sorry to say that I can't speak about those things.
Counselor, I fully understand that you cannot reveal those privileged engagements, the content within. I'm just sort of going around the contours of it, if you'd allow me to. And that is that I'm just curious about, because as I understand it, I'm talking to you in Long Island, correct?
That's correct.
And the Laundries have always been in Northport.
No, they haven't always been in Northport. They lived on Long Island for many years. I don't know exactly how many years they've moved down to Florida.
Sure.
But,
understand. I just mean for the purpose of this particular engagement, say from September 1st on, you did not go to Northport to engage with them. You really had to do this from afar. That's
correct. Everything has been, by telephone, text message, or how should we say, FaceTime.
So I do want to say, yes, thank you, Gwendo, for becoming a member. Appreciate it. And I just saw a comment come in that I want to, Heidi, yes, thank you. Regards to privilege, not necessarily true. He could have had the parents sign a waiver and they could have been in the same room with him. Yes, it's complicated. Do you really believe he had them sign a waiver? Do you? Because I don't. Now, could he sign it? Could they fake one later? I guess. But it's, again, Christopher made it a little bit more complicated. There's still a conflict of interest of, does he because he just said he represents them, right? If he represents them, then the way that at least from what I'm understanding, and we'll get Christopher explain more. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just telling you what I've heard. It's more complicated if he reps them all than just having them there as witnesses of the parents. So yes, Heidi, you're not wrong, but we'll have to get more specific. All I know is there's definitely a lot more. He's made it a lot more complicated now. Is the moral of the story? He's going to have to explain that a little bit better.
Or sort of these group Zooms. Did you have like the family group FaceTime or the group Zoom like this?
Oh, hold on.
No, we didn't. We didn't do something like that.
Conference calls?
We've had a couple of conference calls, yes.
And when you had the conference calls, I mean, I'm just thinking of myself as a mother. And if my son were, engaging with our attorney, it would be difficult. And I was curious about how Mrs. Laundrie's reactions were, how she was digesting, and again, you don't have to tell me what you were discussing. I understand that's privilege, but just the reaction, the nature, and the sort of taking all of the information in real time. How did she manage that?
You know, Ashley, I don't want to give you an interview where I can't answer any of your questions, but, you know, it seems like most of the questions you're asking are going to border on the attorney-client confidentiality that I can't answer. If you're asking me, you know, in general, what has been, you know, Roberta Laundrie's, you know, demeanor and disposition over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I can tell you she's been very upset. You know, she's, again, been distraught, and in the last couple of days, she's grieving.
Fully understand. And again, I'm not going to press you on what was said. I'm, again, trying to go around the outside as best I can to get the color, the essence, and the feel of what the family was going through in those early days between September 1st and September 11th when Gabby Petito was declared missing.
What she's doing here, just to pause, sorry to keep pausing, I'm going to keep offering the commentary. Again, I still think, even with a waiver, it's so murky now. All these multiple conversations and moods and everything that's going on, it feels pretty clear to me that he's repping them all. Is he allowed to do that? Does that complicate things? What are the conflicts of interest? What's the privilege? All that stuff now is going to be a lot more complicated, which Ashley's going to press him later. And remember, Stephen's not a experienced criminal defense attorney, so he doesn't even really understand it, I don't think. I would argue he doesn't understand it at all. But he's trying his best as a family friend who's saying, well, I've represented them and I'm a lawyer, so therefore privilege is the same. In a criminal defense, it's not. So Ashley, I feel like, is painting this picture, and listen to her, because she's trying to get him to sort of admit to the things that happened, so he'll have to change his story again, I'm imagining. And then there's multiple versions of this, which then prove that Bertolino and therefore the Laundries aren't telling us the truth.
And even thereafter, up until the 13th, when Brian himself...
and Heidi, thank you. Heidi said it would have to have been Brian who signed that waiver. Can't really fake it now. Do I think there is a waiver? No. So there you go. I think that's what Krista was implying. It's going to be hard to get that waiver. But there you go. Especially if Brian needs to sign it, he would either have to have signed it, which seems weird, because then he's acknowledging that they know. By signing that waiver, he's acknowledging that the parents knew, because then everything that the lawyer knows, the parents know. It's so much more complicated now that Bertolino has revealed that the parents were there in all the conversations. Do you guys follow? I hope you follow that. I know it's complicated, but that's the takeaway here. Because of attorney-client privilege with Brian, who is the client, who's always been the client, to know that the parents now were available and aware of all this confidential privilege, in theory, actually throws Brian's privilege away, is what I've been told by multiple lawyers.
Left for the hike and didn't come back. I guess all I'm trying to get a feel for is that the family meeting with you were can I put it this way? When you had the family meeting with them via electronics, was it a happy occasion?
You know, often I tell people, as an attorney, I often don't get to deal with that on happy occasions. So, you know, you're using a term happy that I would never use. What I can tell you is every conversation's been serious. Every conversation that I've had, as any attorney would have with their client, doesn't necessarily border on happy. And I don't mean to beat you up on the use of that word.
Beat you up.
But what I can tell you is
I'm so used to beating up these women. Sorry. I'm not implying he's done that at all, guys. But my God, his use of words is so stupid. I'm not trying to beat you up, Ashley, but
not at liberty to discuss anything prior to September 11th. You can ask me many different ways, but I'm going to keep giving you the same answer. All of that is going to be attorney-client privilege. Anything after
without
September
divulging.
11th,
so everything before the 11th, when they actually hired me as the attorney, everything before is still a privilege, even though I just told you they hired me on the 11th. So,
sure. Without divulging anything they said, were they at least all three of them, able to engage with you and
do you see what she's doing here? So all three of them were having like a happy engagement with you guys, is because she knows the privilege.
Fill you in on their perspectives of anything that you were discussing.
on September 12th and September 13th, yes.
Okay, so remember that. Remember that. So were they able to sort of all together express their feelings, everything else together, blah, 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 blah? Yes. Now that's remember that. We're going to, what is that, 646? Puff, can you put in that, if I need to go back, 646, he confirmed this, that yes, we talked about this together.
Absolutely.
All three of them could fill you in on how things were going within the household. Your discussion as a group was full and rich, and you could get a feel for what was happening in that household through your conversation with the three of them.
I had private conversations with Brian. I had private conversations with Chris. and I had private conversations with Chris and Roberta separately. I can tell you that, I had an understanding of, how the house was functioning at that point in time.
Now, to Bertolino's credit as well, he sort of said both things. He said, yes, all three of us talked. And then he caught himself here and he did say, well, we all each had private conversations. Now, he did say that. He did say that before, as she ignores that. She does ignore that because she doesn't want to hear that, because that sort of will debunk her theory of, well, you were all talking about the murder together, right? He never, ever said that. So I do have to call both sides. And Ashley, as good as she is impressing, Bertolino did just admit, well, yes, all three of us knew. We had conversations. And he's like, I had private conversations with Brian. I had private conversations with Chris. I had private conversations with Roberta, et cetera, et cetera. So take that as you will.
But you didn't have the family together, the family unit together, to find out how they were coping as a unit.
And so she notices and she goes, so you didn't have them together?
There were a couple of conversations where, all, three members of the family in that household were together. Yes.
So she's like, all right, good. Now I'm back to my narrative because you're admitting we were all together. Now, what those conversations are of like, hey, should we get Chipotle for dinner? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what are we getting? What should we get? Should we go camping next week? Whatever those conversations would have been may not been something that needed privilege, is what the reality is. However, she's gotten to admit, well, yeah, they had conversations about the mood and what to do. One would be, and I'm curious what you guys think, one of you would assume all these private conversations with a lawyer and then having some conversations with everybody together, I'm just guessing they were all on the same page. I'm just guessing they all knew the same stuff. Again, speculation on my part. I don't know this for fact, but I do offer my opinion. This is, look, I try my best to give you honest news, but I do also speculate. This channel is my opinion, and my friends and my guests and my experts sometimes. So I've had some people email like, Andy, you're not a news. Like, I never claim to be a news channel. I'm an opinion channel that reports on the news, but I try to be, unbiased. And I got to say, in both instances here, it could go either way. They could have been talking about their dinner plans. Fine, I guess. I don't buy that. I personally think if you have a lawyer there and you're wanted for like these charges, your girlfriend's fiance rather is missing, people are calling, you're not picking phones back up. It feels like they're all talking about the same topic. So therefore, privilege is what we're really going to eventually talk about. Were these conversations attorney-client privilege?
Okay. So presumably, and what days were those conversations? Because it's, the mood and the change in what happened in the dynamic of that family is important. What days did you have those conversations where you knew how all three of them were feeling at the same time?
She's trying to get him to admit. Again, she knows what she wants here. What days were you together?
I would say
Sky Blue. This is a 42-minute interview. I'm not playing the whole 42 interview and then going back. Shut up. If you don't like my commentary, you can go look up this interview yourself and watch it solo, and then you can come back and fast forward through my commentary. What are you doing? I'm not going to sit here and play a 42-minute interview for you when you could have watched it all weekend. I'm going to play it in parts, and I'm going to give you my commentary because that's what we do here. So shut up. Stop ignoring the chat. They're telling you to be patient. This is how the channel works. But good to see you.
Sunday the 12th and Monday the 13th.
So those are critical days. Can you tell me the demeanor of Brian Laundrie on the 12th and on the 13th? And when I ask you about demeanor, I'd like to try to get specific. Did he seem suicidal?
No. And I literally just spoke to the family, Chris and Roberta, maybe 45 minutes ago. And, we repeated this conversation or that question. And, Brian was not, outwardly suicidal. And what Mrs. Laundrie, what Roberta just said to me, she goes, how do you really know, what do you really know what somebody's thinking? And, we can suspect what their mood might be, but what do you really know what's going on inside? And I can tell you that, Brian was alert. He was coherent. When he was speaking with me, I had no inclination or indication that he would hurt himself.
Also, just to be clear, I'm playing a little fast. There's a little trick. You can slow me down. Go hit the button. And you could slow down my video, and you can watch it regular speed, and actually it'll slow me down too. Some people think I talk too fast.
I have heard you say on other interviews just in the last 24 hours that he was grieving, and anyone who is grieving is sad over death. Was he sad over the death of Gabby Petito when he was grieving prior to going out on his hike, from which he did not return?
And Ashley, as I've said, all day long, because I know I've been getting heat on the use of that word, Yesterday was a very long day. The day before that was a long day. One of the last interviews I gave of the evening, which was a last-minute thing, I used the word grieving, which I had been using all day long with respect to Chris and Roberta and the news of the death of their son. I clarified that. I said he was upset. He was distressed. Chris described him to me as he was leaving. And this was several weeks later when Chris and I were talking about it. He said, Steve, he was upset. He was distressed. I knew I shouldn't let him walk out the door, but I couldn't stop him. I used the term grieving. It was probably a poor choice of words, and everybody has pounced on that and said, well, what was he grieving? Who was he grieving? Grieving was, used by myself multiple times yesterday with respect to Chris and Roberta, and it was a poor choice of words to be using for Brian.
Okay, well, you said it, and now it's there, and you said it multiple times, and just because you say it's a poor choice of words, does it mean we can't still buy that you were incorrect in how you said it?
So did Brian know that Gabby was dead at that point?
I can't answer that question. What Brian knew or didn't know would be privileged. It would be confidential, and certainly not something I can discuss now.
We're all guessing, yes. Also, I see a lot of you are like, oh, there's breaking news. There's breaking news. Yes, we'll get to this. I don't want to interrupt the flow of what we're doing here, but yes, Brian Etten, WFLA, they're all reporting. This is the breaking news. The family is grieving privately somewhere in Florida. According to an attorney, the Laundries left their Northport house yesterday morning, and they've left the house. Honestly, I don't blame them. I don't see this as a problem. We're hounding them outside the house. They want some peace after their son died. It is what it is, guys. There's going to be a lot of answered questions to have to answer and a lot more happening, but that's the breaking news. The family is no longer in that house. So everyone who's camped out that house, I guess they're just trying to get them to leave. It'll be interesting to see if that tactic works. But we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but that is the breaking news that everyone is telling me is happening. Back to the interview.
And respectfully, Counselor, I understand your privilege, but as a journalist, I do have to ask, did Brian kill Gabby?
It's a tough question to answer other than no. To my knowledge, I can't say that he did or didn't. I'm sure the FBI may be able to fill those answers in at a different time.
Okay, so do you believe him so far? Do you believe him on all this? Because I don't. This is all damage control because he went and did a bunch of interviews that I think the family was probably very upset by. And I think the fact actually that this news that they've left to me is even more proof that they're upset by. There was footage of Christopher Laundrie putting no trespassing signs in the lawn because I think this was a plan. Like, we got to get out of here. There's no purpose now. Why? Let's go get away from somewhere, find some place where we can go where hopefully people won't bother us. It's only a matter of time until someone realizes they're there and then the protesters show up. But look, this is all damage control. I don't believe him. I think they knew. And he's implying they knew. To me, it feels like he's implying they knew. This idea that did he seem suicidal? No. Well, then why was he grieving? Well, he's not suicidal, but he's grieving. Oh, poor source of words. He was sad? Like, this guy can't even make up his own damn mind. He's such a bad spokesman for this family that I'm not surprised that they picked up and left. And what's going to be very interesting, and we'll talk about it with Christopher later, is the idea of who's going to throw who under the bus. Because if things that Bertolino says in this interview or other interviews ends up causing them more trouble, I think they could throw him under the bus. I think at a certain point, even though he's the family attorney, there's a certain point where the words he's saying could affect them legally. And then, that's when you throw friends under the bus.
Do Chris and Roberta Laundrie know if their son killed Gabby?
Do they know if their son killed Gabby is what the question is?
I can't comment on that either. I mean, what Brian told...
Yes.
When I say I can't comment, you're asking me what the parents knew, what their son told them. I do not know.
But I can't comment. I don't know. See, he's so bad. The answer should be no, they didn't know. It's such an easy way to know. And also, he's allowed to say that and be lying. He's allowed to lie. So the answer he should have said was no. So instead it's I can't comment, which is pleading the fifth, which to me admits that they did. Every time he says that I can't comment. But in this instance, he wisely realizes, well, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But even that's sort of like a denial because you were there. You just had a whole conversation about the times you were all together talking about things. You clearly know more, and there's stuff you can't say yet. He doesn't know what he wants to say is what the reality here. He's trying to do damage control without really understanding what are we going to say, when are we going to say it, and are we going to get sued? And the question is they may not be getting sued because the other thing that's really interesting here, actually, do I have it here? Sorry, I'm still getting used to my pardon me, this is worth it. But here's something I did see. An ex-FBI agent, officials negotiated details of Laundrie's whereabouts with his parents. So this was a piece that was out there, and I've seen other people saying this. But yeah, this former FBI agent does say, yeah, it would make sense that they would have made some sort of deal on finding the whereabouts. Now, I'm not believing all the conspiracies that Brian Laundrie's, the bones aren't his, all that. I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy talk, personally. However, was a deal made to find the body? I think so. And I think if you watch my video over the weekend, I think Stephen Bertolino kind of flubbed that one too, because he knows there's a deal that's made and he's not supposed to talk about it because they can all want to pat themselves in the back for doing a good job. Good job, Northport, and everything else, right? But the reality is, was there a deal made? I'm sure there was a deal made. Now, I have no proof of that. However, that's just my opinion. I'm curious what you guys think too. But let's be honest. That makes sense. That is a total possibility. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory. Anybody who's saying otherwise is crazy.
You have mentioned in other interviews that there will be time as we move ahead in this story for more questions to be answered, perhaps more secrets to be revealed. Clearly, there's no exposure for the youngest member of the family that you represent. He is no longer. He can no longer be tried for anything, even posthumously. So there's zero exposure other than legacy for Brian Laundrie. For that reason, how long will it be until you can actually tell us these things?
As I said, there are some unanswered questions. There are some issues that need to be resolved. There are, charges out there still in Wyoming. There are certain things that I even discussed with the FBI today with respect to Chris and Roberta that still have to be resolved. There's been a lot of accusations. There's been a lot of finger pointing. And, those issues will be resolved in the coming days, weeks, or months, however long it takes. This is just wrapping up in the last 48 to 72 hours. And we're going to need some more time to work through this.
Because, again, look what's on screen here. And I'm sorry, I'm thankfully they put it up there so I didn't miss it. I don't know if Brian killed Gabby. No, he didn't kill Gabby. That's not, yes, he killed Gabby. I don't know. That's him playing both sides, which is a really weird place to go. And to me, that screams guilt. Once again, screams guilt. How does the lawyer not know? So the lawyer's going to play like Brian didn't tell any of them anything? Brian didn't tell us. He just said, again, Andy Damas here. Andy Damas. They had a fight. Gabby left. They were distraught. They fought a lot. And Brian didn't tell us. He brought the camper home, and he was sad. He was sad because he really thought this was the last fight, and he wasn't going to see her again, and yada, yada, yada. Now, let's play that out just for a second. Let's humor them for a second. Okay. So you didn't know who killed her then. The parents have to know at this point. Brian clearly did it, whether he told us or not, right? If we're playing the speculation game, let's really see it through, because who else would have done it? Doesn't make any sense, and I'm sure there's more and more proof that the FBI and everybody's getting together, and they already know it. They're holding on to it. That prove that Brian is clearly why he's suspect number one. Now, the knowing whether they knew or not is legacy for their child, everything else. I mean, they're already dead. They're already dead in the media and the eyes of all of us because they didn't speak up. However, did they know? That's the one question I'm not going to speculate. I think they did, but I'm not going to say they knew. They absolutely, I feel like they did, but we don't know. This lawyer though, come on. What kind of dumb lawyer wouldn't be like, Brian, you just left her on the side of the road? Is she dead? Do we know if she's dead? You'd think he would have a little bit more insight. So again, him at least admitting, well, I don't know if he killed her, is very telling. It's very telling because to me, if anything, my instinct is the Laundries don't know how to proceed yet. They don't know how to safely proceed forward to protect themselves in the future. And just to take a quick ad break, Anonymous says, if this lawyer was such good friends with the fault, why wouldn't he recommend an actual criminal lawyer to help them through the process instead of taking this case on himself when he clearly has no clue how to speak, even is in the same state? Well said, Anonymous. Kit Kat, what's up? What bothers me is why wouldn't this family friend not advise his clients to retain actual defense attorney? It makes no sense. Well said. Millweb, didn't they say when they reported him missing that he might hurt himself? Yes. I believe that, remembering that too. Thank you, Millweb. Andrea, isn't that privilege saying what Chris said? You'd think, but this attorney says whatever he wants. Now, I did ask Christopher Melcher that. Privilege is up to the client. So if the Laundries want to go against their lawyer for revealing privilege, they could do that. And the Laundries themselves could say, well, we assumed he was our lawyer and we had privilege. So there are like defenses that can be done that potentially will protect them, even though he's admitting a bunch and screwing up. There's still a lot out there that could sadly protect them. But very good point. Andrea, I don't understand why he wouldn't. It's all privilege. He's just deciding what he wants to reveal as, what he thinks is worthy of being privileged or not. Melinda, thank you, Melinda. He's a joke of an attorney. His main field is real estate. She's asking the questions in different ways to see if he trips up, which he has. Correct. That's what we're watching here. That's why I wanted to give you notices, pause, and comment, because we can catch the trip ups and we can catch her intent even at the beginning of the interview, which a lot of you probably didn't know is what she's actually doing. It's why it's worth watching again. Anna, about the remains identification, it happened through dental records, but to confirm that, it should be possible to extract DNA from the teeth pulp, or am I wrong? Greetings from Italy. Oh, cool. Well, good to see you from Italy, Anna. I don't know. I'm trying to get like an expert, and if anybody who's watching has one or knows of one, please. I'd love a DNA bone expert person who can actually call in and talk to us about what's real. Could it be planted? How hard is it to fake teeth? I'm working on it. So if anybody else out there has a lead, hit me up. popcornplanet@gmail, or you can hit me up a DM on social right there at Andy Signer. Instagram and Twitter DMs, I check those the most. Instagram usually the best one. Heidi, yes, if I would have been Brian, it would have been Brian who would have had to sign that waiver. Can't really fake it now. Yeah, got you. And then Gwendo became a member, and then Lisa V. Bertolino is not licensed to practice law in Florida. Why did the FBI entertain conversing with him? And do you think he will be in trouble in the future? I do, personally. But if they made a deal, maybe not. The deal might have allowed them to get away with this. But again, if he keeps talking his mouth and getting in trouble, they might take away the deal. But it's going to a deal makes the FBI look bad, but they happen all the time, guys. Finding the bones, the evidence was crucial. Having us on a wild goose chase for 6 months, even worse. Think of the waste of money. And then Maximilian, thank you. Truthful Trucker became a member. Thank you, Truthful Trucker. And I think we are caught up. Awesome. And sorry, apologies. I will try and get to your chats throughout. Samantha Stone also became a member. Hit that. If you guys are wondering how, I saw someone ask earlier, how do you become a member? Just hit join. It's right next to subscribe. A lot of tiers there. And if you subscribe, we're going to have another members only stream, a lot of other perks. You get little, working on new emojis. And the most important thing is you're supporting the channel at whatever level you can. So thanks to everybody can. At least hit subscribe. That's free. Hit the bell for all alerts so you actually get notifications. Smash the like button. Can we smash the like button on the video? Thank you guys so much. You can leave your comments when you see it later. But it also, when you subscribe, you get to chat in the subscribers only chat. Just because we have a lot of people, it helps to slow it down and keep the spammers out. So thanks to everybody who's hit subscribe or sent a support. It means the world. Thank you guys so much. All right, back to the interview. Oh, sorry, Truthful Trucker, you just sent one over. Apparently, there's no DNA match on the partial skull piece. Is that facts? Because that's a whole separate video. Man, that's going to make a lot of people upset. I need to find that anthropology expert. I'm working on it. So stay tuned.
Mr. Bertolino, what do you expect is going to be found in the notebook? Because the Northport police are saying that it is indeed salvageable.
I have no idea what's in the notebook. To my knowledge, the notebook was something that was maybe on the trip. I've heard many different things about this notebook. I don't know if Brian wrote a suicide note or if he wrote a goodbye note. I don't know if it was just a notebook that contained drawings. We'll have to wait and see what's in there.
Mr. Bertolino, is it possible we might see a confession in that notebook?
As speculation.
Again, Ashley, I don't know what's in the notebook. The FBI may disclose what they find in there. They may not.
You are one of the last 3 people who spoke with him prior to him leaving with that notebook and a backpack and a dry bag. Based on his demeanor, and I'm not asking you to reveal what he said, based on his demeanor, would it surprise you if there were a confession in that notebook?
After the way this case has played out, I don't think anything would surprise me. At this point, even the fact that the Laundries, Chris and Roberta, are the ones who happen to find the items and the location of the remains, everybody seems to be suspect on that. There have been so many twists and turns in this saga. I don't think anything would surprise me.
I mean, that's a good answer. I'm going to give credit when it's due. He's right. That's the most truthful thing he said. Nothing surprises me anymore is the most truthful thing he said.
I take that as a no. It would not surprise you if there were a confession in that notebook?
But I'll stick by my original comment, which is, nothing's going to surprise me in this case.
You may be bolstered to know that the Northport police back up this notion that Chris and Roberta simply stumbled upon the dry bag and the notebook within about a 30 to 45-minute walk, whereby the authorities and millions of dollars of the highest tech equipment could do nothing of the sort in 38 days. For the public, it's confounding, and you have to respect just how the magnitude of the coincidence. The Northport police is saying it's also coincidental. But do you know any other information that would prove otherwise, that it is not coincidental?
I.e. a deal.
Literally before this interview, I was on the phone with somebody who, has more information about that than I do.
What?
The cameraman that was there that filmed this, I have thanked the police for being there. I've thanked the cameraman for being there. And
so he's privately calling the photographer. They're like having private conversations. Does that not sketch anybody else out? Just me?
Yeah, I do understand that the public says this is confounding. It's unbelievable. But everybody who's been there and everybody who has firsthand knowledge comes back and says the same thing. This is the beginning of relative to the beginning of the preserve. This is where Brian was known to hike. If he went into that preserve and did something to hurt himself, and maybe he did it right away, it would be expected that he would be found there. So, as coincidental as you say it is, it really is not such a far stretch to say that if Brian did in fact go to the preserve to hurt himself, and he did it right away, it makes perfect sense that that's where it is.
So basically it's like, yeah, our story we're telling you is right. Don't ask me about the deal again because I'm not going to answer that. But yeah, sure, it's coincidental. Yeah, it's crazy. Anything's possible, right? Ashley, come on. You're buying it, right?
The park was underwater. I'm sorry?
Sorry to interrupt. Do you know if he took any kind of medications out with him in the backpack or in the dry bag that might have contained any sort of substances that would have helped him in a quest to commit suicide?
I have no knowledge of any substances whatsoever, either prescribed or otherwise.
Do you have any knowledge of the contents of the dry bag or the backpack? Not
at all. And, to my understanding, the parents, Chris and Roberta, didn't know what was in the backpack when Brian left the house. I believe we were asked that question on September 17th. And, Chris and Roberta said they didn't know what he put in the backpack. He just, had the backpack packed and said, I'm going out for a hike.
To that end, I want to talk a little bit about the timing of all of it, because the press sort of, felt a little yanked around, as did the police, with the timing of when, Brian went on his hike. Originally, it was Tuesday the 14th, and then late into this whole ordeal, it became Monday. I heard you speak on Chris Cuomo's program the other day, suggesting that you, in fact, were the person to call the FBI and notify them the next day after he didn't return, which would be Tuesday, correct?
So
these dates are important. Puff, are you paying attention? Help me put these dates down in that document. Thank you. You're the best. Throw Puff some love in the chat. Our mod, Puff, she's been helping me keep track of some of these.
It is correct that I notified the FBI, and, you'll have to forgive me because the days were blending together. And, I spoke to the FBI just today on that issue again. And, the FBI confirmed it is well documented on their side that it was Thursday. And, I was reminded that I specifically said, Brian didn't come home, tonight. Would you come home, having all the press and everything else going on out there? The confusion initially was Chris and Roberta were telling me it was Tuesday, and Tuesday night Chris went out to look for him. It was Wednesday that Chris and Roberta went to look and hiked a little bit in the preserve, and it was Thursday that they retrieved the car. We then received some information from press that indicated that they had video of the car in the driveway on Wednesday. So we had to go back with Chris and Roberta step by step of each day. They had been in their home every day. The days were blending together. It was very stressful. And when we went through the period and I showed them the video clip of the Mustang on I believe it was the 15th in the driveway, Chris said to me, well, then it had to be Monday. And I went back to the FBI, and the FBI said, yes, we believed it was Monday from the beginning, but we do understand that the days were blending together. So as I said,
this is my problem. The days blending together, and I only interrupt because I'm a mother of boys, and if my son had unexpectedly come home from a trip without his fiance, stopped talking, refused to speak to police, she's reported missing. He is, in your, as you said, mistaken characterization, grieving. I mean, that tells me that he is apoplectically sad. As you mischaracterized it as grieving, it is at the very least horrifically sad, and he walks out my door and doesn't come home. I do not forget that date. That date is etched in my mind as a mother, and I dare say that my children's father would feel exactly the same way. So I struggle with any mistake about what day my extremely distraught son went out on a hike and didn't come home.
Can we say hallelujah?
And that may be true, for everyone. But
For everyone. Even he just is like, well, yeah, I wouldn't either.
but I would also tend to bet that you haven't been in the position that the Laundries have been put in
Boom.
the last 3 to 4 to 5 weeks. And in that week in particular, they were in the house every day. They were going through it. I was relying on the communication they had, but there was no doubt in my mind that I was the one that called the FBI. And, I've had multiple conversations.
So this is all important, but that he did. Ashley's was beautiful, beautiful. He did knock her. He did fight back well with. Well, you can't be in their mindset. It's the best response he did, I got to say. But Ashley was spot on there, and it makes no sense. I can assume in her mindset still, because she's in that mindset. How could she forget the day? How could a mom forget the day that the son left? I know it's the pandemic life has made me. I'm so confused what days are what. I don't even remember. Am I in Tuesday, Wednesday? I get it, but you'd think that day you remember pretty set in stone, especially if he's leaving, grieving or sad or whatever word you want to friggin' use. I mean, there at that point, it was starting to get heavy, and he left while it was getting heavy. You'd think someone would remember what day that was. Then you went and found the car. Come on. I'm not buying it, even in the mindset.
Conversations with the FBI, initially. And I even said to the FBI, I said, I know I told you that the night of or the morning after. So I was even hedging my comments because I didn't know in which conversation I had informed them. Was it the
because we couldn't keep our story straight.
Night of or was it the morning after? And ultimately, in conjunction with the FBI, we all agreed that it was Monday the 13th. The proof is in the pudding, if you will. In this case, the reporter showed me that the vehicle was in the driveway on the 15th. The FBI was, saying from the beginning of our conversations with them that it was the 13th. So when we put the sequence of events together, it was the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
And our Brian Enton asked Josh Taylor of the Northport Police about all of this timeline, and specifically your contention that you notified the FBI that Brian was missing the day after he didn't come home. And I'm just going to ask our control room to play what the Northport Police said today about that to Brian Enton. It was Josh on Brian being reported missing. It's not a flattering depiction of you, and they're flat out saying it's not true. So let me just play this moment for you. I'm going to get you to comment on the other side.
So she's about to sandbag him and play this clip. And I want you to really listen to this clip because this is the part where I wonder if we're going to disagree. I can see both sides of this, but listen carefully.
Mr. Bertolino says that he called and reported Brian missing sooner than Friday, and that it was just the official report filed on Friday. Is that true?
I can tell you that the Northport Police Department, that when we got the call on Friday that he was being reported missing, was news to us. I was in the room myself. It was a very surprising moment. I can say that with 100% certainty. Whatever he may have said in passing, this is a situation where we're trying to, they were uncooperative on Saturday, not revealing any details. We got a missing young lady. Really, their credibility was, what's going on there. If I'm understanding him correctly, he says that he may have said something to someone in the FBI. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. What I know is that none of our actions and what we've said show that that's a possibility at all.
So, Mr. Bertolino, they say the police and the FBI have been in lockstep all the way through this and that they would have known had you reported it to the FBI. How do you respond?
Look how angry he is. Look, this is where it gets really explosive, to be perfectly, I'm going to go a little bigger here. He's been calm. He's been speaking calm to this lady. He's ready to unleash. So this is the beginning of the anger.
So Ashley, what I just heard, if you listen closely, is that the Northport police gentleman, Josh Taylor, I believe. I don't want to get his name wrong. Is it Mr. Taylor?
Correct.
Okay. So what Mr. Taylor just said was that I purportedly reported it to the FBI. He doesn't know.
Now, it's important I say, Josh Taylor did say that. He did say, I don't know. But he followed that I don't know with, it's just it seems impossible given everything I've heard. So he did say I didn't know, but he's also like, well, I was there listening in the room, the FBI, et cetera, and it just doesn't sound possible that he talked to someone else that I didn't know about. But he did say I don't know.
And therein is your answer. He does not know.
Now, again, I want to be Team Ashley. I don't like Bertolino, but guys, you're being disingenuous if you want to support Josh Taylor right now, because that's the guy who lost him in the first place. That guy's also, in my book, complete idiot. So we got two idiots. Which idiot do you believe more? We got two idiots yelling at each other, trying to blame each other for their idiocy. So Ashley's going to keep pinning him against that comment from Josh Taylor, but I got to say, he did say, I don't know. Now, I wish the lawyer, instead of just keep leaning on the I don't know, which is weak, instead, well, no, I talked to this FBI agent. Here's my proof. Then it would really make them look all stupid. But he can't, because I suspect it didn't happen. But to his credit, Josh Taylor did say, I don't know.
I can tell you that the FBI does not have a problem with this. Today at 2 p.m., 2:15.
It's also convenient because the FBI, he's saying the FBI has no problem with this. The FBI doesn't comment. It's kind of this and I remember asking Christopher Melcher, our attorney who calls in a bunch, yeah, you can use that to your advantage a lot because the FBI is not going to confirm or deny because they don't comment.
I had a meeting with two representatives from the FBI in my office, and they once again concurred and confirmed there is absolutely no doubt that I informed the FBI that Brian didn't come home on day one. Let me tell you something else, Ashley, before you interrupt me again.
Before you interrupt me again, see, he's pissed. Look at him. Look at that. He's like turning into anger. I have my anger toy. I need my anger toy from Inside Out.
I did not call anybody on Friday. I heard Mr. Taylor's press conference on Thursday. On Thursday, Mr. Taylor said, when asked a question, do you know where Brian is? He said yes. He was asked a question a little bit later in that same presser, do you know exactly where he is? He said yes. I was shocked. I immediately called my clients and said, do you know where Brian is? Because I don't. We haven't seen him. Was he picked up? Because if he was picked up by the PD, they would have to inform me. And they said no. At that point, I got I'll disclose this.
Are you paying attention? So at this point, he's like, all right, fine. I want to prove I'm right. So I'm going to give up my confidentiality here. Just F it.
I reached out to somebody in the afternoon, and I got an ethical opinion as an attorney for Brian Laundrie as a missing person, perhaps. What could I do? Once I received that ethical advice, if you will, decisions were made between me and Chris and Roberta.
Who aren't the clients.
With that knowledge, Friday came. Friday evening, somewhere around 4:45, I received a call from the FBI. Let me be perfectly clear, unequivocally. I received a call from the FBI. I did not call them. It came up on the screen in my truck. I told my daughter she needed to leave the truck. The FBI said to me, we got a tip that Brian was seen in Tampa. And I said, that's wonderful, because as you know, we haven't seen him all week. We told you he was missing. And the FBI agent said, yes, we know that, but we want to come to the house to see if he's there. And I said, well, who gave you the tip? Who said this? Because I thought it was a ruse for the FBI to get into the house, was my belief. I then said to my daughter that I need to take care of this. And I told the FBI that I needed to take care of something with my daughter. We agreed on a time for 6:15. At 6:15, the FBI came to the Laundrie residence on the 17th. They came inside. We had discussions. I was here in New York, and on FaceTime with them, we agreed that the best course of action and the formal procedural course of action would be to file a missing persons report so that Brian could be located officially, so that they could put the resources into locating him. Somewhere along the line, perhaps someone from the Laundrie family household.
Who would have that been?
And it wasn't Chris and Roberta.
Someone from the Laundrie household that's not Chris and Roberta.
Must have got the paperwork, called it in, got some kind of case number. Whatever they did, I don't know. But that's how it played out. And the FBI...
Was that Cassie?
Yeah, good question. Cassie? Who else is in the family that would have done that in the household?
Excuse me?
Was that Cassie who did that?
Cassie was not in the household at all. It was Chris, Roberta. There was a representative. There was two representatives, I believe, from Northport PD. There was a representative from the FBI and myself on FaceTime for 2.5 hours.
So who else was in the household? This doesn't make any freaking sense. Does this make any sense?
We gave the FBI all the information we had with respect to Brian. The FBI has never had an issue with this. And if you listen closely to that clip that you just played, you will hear Josh Taylor say, Mr. Bertolino or the attorney may have told the FBI, I don't know. And here's the issue. On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, nobody from the FBI called me and said, have you seen Brian? On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I did not reach out to the FBI and say, we haven't seen Brian. Because quite frankly, we didn't think he was, quote, missing. He went out for a hike. Brian had packed a bag. He routinely went for hikes for days. And it wasn't thought of that he was missing until Wednesday or Thursday. We started wondering, what do we do?
He wasn't missing because he goes on hikes routinely, but then a few days later, we're like, what should we do? He's been on a hike, which he does all the time, but should we say he's missing? Let me talk to my ethical contact to see, am I allowed to say he's missing? Like, is this guy listening to himself? Like, this guy thinks he's helping? Like, is this clearing anything up for you, or is this only digging more holes? Because for me, he's digging more holes. I have no effing clue what he's going on a tirade about. He would often go on hikes and go along for his camping hiking trips, but after a few days we thought, well, this isn't normal, even though I just told you it was normal. So we thought, what should we do? So I'm going to reveal this, but I shouldn't. I made a call to one of my contacts and asked ethically and morally, is it okay to say he's missing? Like, what the fuck is this guy doing? This dude is a moron. Stupid. I love that I can play that. That's my son's favorite clip. Can you name the movie? Let me know. Oh, all right. Sorry. I just needed to pause there to shake my head shake the stupid out of my head because he's making me stupid.
And then Thursday, the events unfolded I just told you about. And then Friday, the events turned around with the FBI coming to the home. That's how it played out.
That's how it played out, guys. Does that make sense to you? Because that's how it played out.
And so you're just to be clear on this, because it's not. You talked to the FBI and said Brian hasn't returned on Tuesday?
No, I didn't say that. I said
Wednesday?
No, I didn't say that either. I said on Monday when I reported to the FBI that Brian didn't return home, the next time...
Wait, hold it. Monday, he went on the walk.
That's correct.
Which you just said he did all the time. He packed up and we did not expect him to be missing. What is it? What's that? Goddamn, what are you talking about?
And he never returned home.
And you're saying Monday night? You made a reference to him not returning home, or was it the next day you told the FBI?
What I said to you was that I had multiple conversations with the FBI during Monday and Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I did not recall whether I mentioned it to the FBI on Monday night or Tuesday morning.
You just said he went on hikes all the time and he wasn't missing. He just said it.
The FBI confirmed with me that their records reflected that it was Monday night.
And yes, Super Wheatley, good job. It's UHF, good job. And this guy, he's literally caught in his own lies right now. His web of lies, he's caught. I don't know why he keeps doing these interviews. He literally just said moments ago that these hikes, we don't expect, he wasn't missing. And now Ashley has grilled him and said, so wait, Monday you spoke to the FBI after he went for a walk? When you just admitted he does this all the time, it wasn't a big deal. But then you're saying, well, he's missing because he didn't come home? Which is it?
So you were talking to the FBI on Sunday, even before he went for the walk. And you were talking to them on Monday before he went for the walk. And you talked to them on Monday after he went for the walk?
Yes. He did say that, Ashley, but let's see how he twists it.
Okay, Ashley, you're bringing multiple issues together.
You mean the truth?
I'm trying to get clarity. That's all. Just details matter on this one.
They do.
They do.
On Saturday evening into Sunday morning at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday night, I got the first phone call regarding this matter. At 1:30 in the morning on Sunday was the first phone call from the FBI on this matter. At 8
What matter?
8 a.m. on Sunday was the next phone call from the FBI on this matter.
Okay, what matter? He's home and he left Monday. What matter?
It was a different agent. It was on the initial introduction, if you will, of this case. On Monday, 2 FBI agents came to my office to introduce themselves and to discuss this case. On Monday evening, or in my recollection, Tuesday morning, I reported to the FBI in a normal conversation that Brian didn't return.
Which you just said he does a lot and not abnormal.
On going back and forth with the FBI on the actual conversation in which that was reported, the FBI confirms that it was Monday the 13th that their records reflect that I told them that Brian didn't come home that night.
So why? So I lied. I didn't know. But then they corrected me.
On Tuesday.
Now that I have that.
No, hold on.
I was just going to say.
On clarity.
Yep.
On Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, there was zero communication with respect to where is Brian between me and the FBI and myself.
It's all just surprising because Josh Taylor said today they were in lockstep with the FBI all the way along. Even the Northport police chief tweeted out, get us an interview with your client on the following Wednesday.
No,
that's what they told us today. That's what they told us today.
Play the clip you just played, and let's listen again where he says, I do not know.
Oh, here comes the fireworks. And someone just called him Dirtolino. I like that.
Because that's what he says, actually.
I'm telling you, they told our Brian Enton today in a whole, it's a 15-minute interview, sir. It's a 15-minute interview, and they said that they've been operating in lockstep with the FBI all the way along.
Okay, play the clip you played a moment ago, and let's listen to him say, I don't know.
You know what? We're going to wrap that clip up.
Actually.
We absolutely 100%.
I thought you wanted clarity, Ashley. I thought you wanted clarity. I just gave you a bunch of nonsense. I thought you wanted clarity. Well, let me just keep repeating on the fact that I have one I don't know in that interview that I'm going to just latch onto so you sound like a liar, and then I don't have to address any serious questions at all because I gotcha. He said I don't know because he doesn't know, and I know. So listen to me and don't listen to him, okay? I gotcha. You wanted clarity. I'm giving it to you, okay? Shut up, woman. I'm giving you clarity. I went and talked about how he goes and hikes all the time, and then he's not missing. But then the night of the hike, I forgot I called the FBI to say he was missing. But I think I told him the next day. But then I was told later that I told him the next day. I thought you wanted clarity. I actually think I talked to the FBI 2 days before he went hiking because we knew he was going to go hiking. We knew he was suicidal. But wait, I didn't mean to say he was suicidal. I think he was just grieving. But I don't know. You want clarity, Ashley. I thought this was clarity.
100%. And we're going to rack that clip up. It takes a minute or so. I'm going to go to break, get the control room to do it. And after the break, we'll play it and we'll get the clarity on that. Is that okay, Mr. Bertolino?
That's fine with me.
We are back with Stephen Bertolino, the attorney for the Laundrie family. And Mr. Bertolino, the clip that we played is a full minute long, but the person who actually conducted the interview is Brian Enton.
All right, so Ash is like, I'm not effing around here. Okay? Let's bring in the man who's been talking to Josh Taylor, who's not a liar. I think Brian is the most honest guy we got on this case. He's been bravo. I love Brian Enton. I hope after this we're going to tweet at him. I hope he will join our charity stream on Thursday. I'm sure they're all busy. I'd love Ashley too. I'm trying to get some. I might need your help because they're ignoring me. But maybe all together, if we ask nicely, maybe they'll pop in. But I'd love to hype them so more people tune in so we can get more donations to the shelter here in Tampa that we're raising money for. So more on that in a bit. But she's like, you know what, Dirtolino? All right, I'll call Brian out from outside the house, and we'll get him on live right now just to spite you. So here we go. This is when the fireworks really get going.
And he has the full characterization of what the Northport police told him for 15 minutes during that interview. So I'd like to turn it over to Brian Enton for a moment to tell you exactly what they told him.
Look at him ganging up on me. This damn broad brought in a dude to help her. This is unfair. I thought I was only here to fight the broad.
Brian, Mr. Bertolino's on with the two of us.
Hi, Ashley. Hi, Mr. Bertolino. I've been in touch with Mr.
Look at him breathing. You can see
Bertolino for the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Look at the Hulk out.
Josh Taylor with Northport Police has said that the way he has phrased it, that they are at the same table, sitting at the same table every day as the FBI, sharing information, constant communication with each other. And I was thinking back to that week when the police chief had that press conference. On that Thursday, the police chief said that he knew where Brian Laundrie was. But it wasn't just that Thursday. Almost every day when I interviewed Josh Taylor, I would ask him, do you know where Brian Laundrie is? And he would say, yes, we know where he is. So I was just listening to your conversation between the two of you, and it's just those interviews we did, and not just us, but many outlets were doing them with the police. They were on TV every night, and it's just hard to imagine that the FBI was also watching this and had this information from Mr. Bertolino, but wasn't sharing it with Northport PD.
So again, I know he spoke a lot there. He's basically like, I was there. I was talking to him all the time. Josh Taylor was made it very clear that he was very in tune and talking to the FBI altogether. Every night we were having these interviews, and not once would they be speaking to you and not telling us, is what that basically means. It makes no sense, sir. And we have tons of evidence to prove this. So I don't know what you're trying to claim here that you called and no one's telling you, because Northport Police worked in tandem with them very closely, and that is intel that would have been very helpful, and I don't know why they would have withheld it from us.
Good evening, Brian. How are you?
Good. Nice to hear your voice, Mr. Bertolino.
Pleasure. I wasn't sure if it was my turn. And Brian.
Yeah, clearly it was. This was like this is a deflection moment where he's, all right, let me gather my thoughts.
And, I concur. It would be hard to believe that, right? So 2 days ago, I had a conversation with somebody in the Northport PD to clear the air on this one as well.
Oh, okay, so now he's admitting, yeah, you know what? Yeah, guys, you know what? You caught me. It doesn't make any sense. Just like them finding the bones doesn't make sense. I mean, it's all so weird, right? But I'm going to tell you something. I just talked to somebody else in the Northport, and they confirmed it, okay? So leave me alone.
And I offered to put myself on speaker so that brass could hear it, so that the upper echelons could hear it, that I wasn't trying to, quote, put the Northport PD under the bus when I brought this up.
Sure. Yeah, he's been so positive about the Northport police.
They told me in no uncertain terms that they had no idea that the FBI knew about this. They were completely shocked on Friday to learn that Brian wasn't in the house. So, Brian, everything you say makes sense. Absolutely everything you say makes sense. But I will tell you, it is not my responsibility to communicate between the FBI and Northport PD. I can tell you once again, as sure as I'm sitting here talking on this screen, the FBI confirmed in my office again today at 2:15. This is a non-issue for them. They have it documented that Brian was reported missing by me to them on Monday evening. My recollection was it was either Monday evening conversation or a Tuesday morning conversation, but I know that I reported it on day one. That being said, Ashley, you told me you would replay that clip. What you chose to do was bring Brian Enton in. I would ask you respectfully, let's play the clip. Let's hear, not from Brian, let's hear from Josh Taylor once again. I can spare the minute. Let's play it.
Well,
you want clarity.
we've had 40 with you, but the control room is about to play it. So control room, fire away. Let's roll.
I don't know. Let's listen to
Mr. Bertolino says that he called and reported Brian missing sooner than Friday, and that it was just the official report filed on Friday. Is that true?
I can tell you that the Northport Police Department, that when we got the call on Friday that he was being reported missing, was news to us. I was in the room myself. It was a very surprising moment. I can say that with 100% certainty. Whatever he may have said in passing, this is a situation where we're trying to, they were uncooperative on Saturday, not revealing any details. We got a missing young lady. Really, their credibility was, what's going on there. If I'm understanding him correctly, he says that he may have said something to someone in the FBI. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. What I know is that...
Let's be honest. He did say, I don't know. Bertolino could have spoken to somebody in the FBI. It's very convenient that just random FBI agent talked to him and he told him. But it's a little funny that here's Northport Police on Saturday and Bertolino and the parents aren't verifying. We told the FBI this. You guys should already know this. Go talk to them. Yeah, we reported missing last night. Huge opportunities, right? To verify and say, why not say it again, Bertolino?
None of our actions and what we've said show that that's a possibility at all.
None of our actions show that that's a possibility at all. Nothing they have proves that could be possible. But he also said, I don't know. Maybe something happened. I don't know. He did say it.
Do you see what they said? Nothing that they say says that it's a possibility at all. I mean, did you hear that last line, Mr. Bertolino? Nothing that we've seen says that's a
all right, look. You may not like me, but I like to keep it 100. Ashley's ignoring the I don't know. She is, because she wants her narrative. Everybody does it. The reality is, Josh Taylor said, I don't know. Now, I'm with Ashley on this because I believe he's made it pretty clear it's very unlikely is what's happening, right? But Bertolino is going to jump on it. And especially if you're going to try and get him with a clip. Don't play a clip unless that clip is unprovable. You know what I mean? So it's the only frustrating thing here is, Ashley, come on. You are ignoring the fact that, yeah, he got you here. He did say, I don't know.
Possibility at all.
What he said was he may have said it in passing, and then he said, I don't know.
Facts. We heard the clip twice, and that is what he said, whether you like it or not.
That's what he said, Ashley. I'll take the
apology. He said it's not a
now.
possibility at all.
Ashley, I like you. You're frustrated because, yeah, I'm frustrated with you, but come on. And it's Josh Taylor we're looking at. Come on, Ashley. I'm sorry if you're mad at me. Actually, I'm not sorry because I'm going to keep it real always. Ashley, this is the point of the interview where I am actually frustrated at you because you're letting Bertolino get off with this excuse because the reality is he did say, I don't know. He said he could have spoken to someone in passing. And Josh Taylor is an idiot.
No, he didn't say that. Not with
Can I ask
Brian
a
Enton,
question,
did he say?
Ashley?
Oh, Brian Enton, you're going to back me up, right, Brian? Come on, Brian, you're going to back me up? While I like her, this is where journalism gets soft for me. It's sketchy. Her narrative wants to control this. And while I believe it, because everything Bertolino is saying is all over the place nonsense, but she's being a dope here. Someone else said it, and you gotta be honest here. Ashley messed up, and Brian, to his credit, did not. Brian was very careful in not just saying, yeah, you're a liar. Ashley is doing an opinion, and that's fine. She's allowed to have an opinion. But the reality is you did not catch him because Josh Taylor, who's an idiot in Northport, Josh Taylor, said, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should get Brian Enton, and he conducted
Yeah, Brian. Come on. Back me up, Brian.
the interview. He sent us the tape. We've now played it twice. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I just had a quick question for Mr. Bertolino that I was thinking about. I mean, if he was at home watching the news all week and hearing the police say that they had eyes on Brian, and the Laundries were watching the news or were hearing from Mr. Bertolino that the police were saying that, but if they were worried about Brian and he was missing and, they wanted him to be found, like, wouldn't you want to correct the record so that people would actually be looking for Brian?
Bravo, Brian. Brian handles it without getting all emotional and losing the sight of the ball. Brian gets it back to the point of, yeah, why didn't you tell us to multiple people, dude? Why didn't you tell it to multiple people? And I believe that. I get why Ashley's frustrated. And I don't mean to be mean to Ashley, but I probably would have the same problem. I've been there. Emotions get hot when you're talking to an idiot who's lying to you. But the reality is, he got you there. He did get you back. And Brian, to his credit, kept it on point and said, well, why didn't you tell other people?
So, Brian, we're not going to get to the bottom of this.
Non-answer.
I'll get past the fact that Ashley won't concede.
And now Bertolino has a point, is what the problem is. This is the key in debate. Now he doesn't have to answer because he can say, Ashley, see, you were wrong, Ashley, and you won't even admit you were wrong.
That what was said out of Josh Taylor's own mouth was that I may have said it in passing and that he does not know.
And I hate that he has this. This is why I'm mad at Ashley, because I hate that now he has a win, guys. That's the frustration thing here.
Let's move past that because the tape speaks for itself. What I will tell you, Brian, is we were not, at that moment, we were not concerned that Brian, had hurt himself or wasn't coming home. Chris and Roberta had indicated to me that Brian had gone out camping and hiking for multiple days, many, many times. He was a young man. They weren't concerned. They thought he was clearing the air, clearing his mind. It wasn't until we got the call on Friday that there was a tip he was seen in Tampa that we were concerned.
Then why did you report it to the FBI, Mr. Bertolino? If they thought he needed to clear his mind and he's an avid hiker and camper, why were you calling or talking to them on Monday night or Tuesday morning saying, yikes, he hasn't come home?
Facts.
Why is it an issue?
Nobody said, yikes, he hasn't come home, Ashley. So let's
Why
skip
would you
that,
report
okay?
it to the FBI if he didn't come home, if he just
Ashley.
needed to clear his mind?
Lose the word report. I was having conversations with the FBI a couple of times a day on those few days. What I said to you was, in my conversation with the FBI, either Monday night or Tuesday morning, I mentioned to the FBI that, by the way, Brian didn't come home. As part of that conversation, I was reminded today from the FBI. He said, yes, I remember distinctly because you said to me, would you come home with all those press in front of your house? My contact with the FBI specifically
if I
reminded me
can,
of that
I want to keep you over the break. I'm losing commercial breaks, and it's a machine I can't stop. But I do want to ask you after the break about
That's why it sucks to be on network TV.
the Northport police saying that they lost him, that they just screwed up and they didn't see him leave to the reserve, which ended up with a
Now, there's so much to unpack on this thing, but the timeline, and I'm sure, and I'll try and do it, or somebody can help me. Like, what he just said, does that match the time of what he just said? It feels like, to me, it doesn't. It feels like he's changed his dates 100 times, even just in this interview. And he keeps saying, well, I told the police and this, and I didn't. And he's hiked all that we weren't worried, but I reported him missing on this. He's misspoke like way too many times in this interview. He looks like an idiot. And I'm talking the lawyer, Bertolino. And that's a fact. But Ashley does have him back on the rails there because she's making a point of, well, so why are we talking to the FBI that you were worried? Well, no, I wasn't worried. Now it went from I was worried to I wasn't worried. I was just letting them know. To I filed a missing person report to, yeah, we were just having ongoing conversations that no one at the Northport Police knew about and no one was sharing with them because I was having twice a day private conversations with the FBI and I was only talking to them, not to the police that were constantly at our house. It's just like, it's so idiot. It's such an idiotic excuse when the reality is, why didn't he tell them all? Why didn't he say, are you talking to the FBI? Aren't you talking to the FBI? Because I believe Josh Taylor in that they were all sharing information at certain points. I do. And I believe Brian Enton to believe that as well. So something's off here.
dead men in the reserve. I want to get your reaction to that. We're back with Stephen P. Bertolino and Brian Enton after break.
Mariah, I'm not wrong, right? He said it earlier that he reported it.
All right, Mr. Bertolino, quick question.
And she said, oh, you don't, the word report. If someone wants to go back and find me the time code, he said report first, and then she says it later, and then he gets mad at her for saying the word report.
said that they lost your client. There was surveillance on him, and when he went off to the reserve, they didn't even notice the Mustang leaving. Does that mean that Brian Laundrie is dead because the police lost him, or is Brian Laundrie dead because Brian Laundrie did it to himself?
You know, Ashley, you can't blame the police. You can't blame the FBI. You can't blame the parents. I've had people blaming me for the last couple of weeks, and specifically the last couple of days. You know, bottom line is we don't know the manner or cause of death of Brian. We can surmise.
That's true.
But let's take an hypothetical and say that Brian did, you know, take his own life. If that's the case, you know, that's on Brian. It's not on the parents. It's not on the FBI. It's not on the police. It's not on me. And I think we need to wait and find out exactly what happened. The parents don't blame the police. You shouldn't blame the police. And that's just wrong.
Back with Mr. Bertolino, the Laundrie's lawyer. Stephen, there's a critical question here. I have 2 minutes left until the end of the show, but I must get you on the record on this. You told me at the beginning of the show that you spoke with the Laundrie family together on the 12th and the 13th of September. That's Sunday and Monday, and he went for his walk on the Monday. But if you spoke with all three of them together, there is no privilege. And you know that as a lawyer. So what did Brian say about what happened to Gabby Petito on that Sunday and that Monday before he left for the swamp?
Okay, so Ashley, if you heard what I said, I had multiple conversations with the Laundries. I had private conversations with Chris, private conversations with Brian, and I had conversations with Chris and Roberta, and I had conversations with them together. You know, I know these people. Some parts of the conversations when they were all together had nothing to do with attorney-client privilege. And a lot
when you were together, what did he tell you? Because there's no privilege when you're all together talking. And you did say on this program that you did have conversations both days with them all together as a family meeting. What did they tell you? Because that isn't privileged.
I disagree. I think, you know, you can represent multiple clients, as you know. You can get waivers of representation, as you know.
No, you can't. You can't have that conversation in criminal proceedings, and that does mean that the privilege is waived. You can do it in real estate. And, you know, gosh, will you come back on Monday? I have 22 seconds left until the black cutoff of this program happens, but I have not finished my conversation with you, Mr. Berlino. Would you come back Monday?
I don't think that's possible. Someone else wants me on Monday. I don't know why.
I'm calling you Monday, Mr. Berlino. Thank you for spending the hour with us.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Oh, by the way, I got you nailed against the wall. You have no, you're not allowed to actually represent the ball. Hey, but will you come back Monday to talk more about this? That was such like an amazing, like, oh yeah, by the way, now it was, we're going to follow up more on this because that is what she's dropped there at the end. Christopher Melcher has confirmed she's not wrong. She's not wrong. Now, he did mention the waivers. There are things about it. It's complicated. This is a complicated topic, but it's an interesting one because it could cause a lot of conflict for him later if he's wrong. And if Brian Laundrie didn't sign one of those waivers, then he's even in more trouble because who is he repping? There's so much to it. But for her little dig at him, you deal in real estate, actually, not in criminal. Now, let's find out the truth to that, and I will. I'm going to bring on Christopher at some point so we can get that later today when he's available. I want to get his information on that because that'll be very telling. But what do you guys think of all that? Hold on. Oh, good. Lewis is coming in. Yeah, I'm ready, Lewis. Come on in. He's like, save your voice from all your impressions. Anyway, and then thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for both Cash Apps and Jay McCarthy. You look refreshed. Happy for you. Thank you so much. I did. I got some break. All right, so guys, let me catch up on what you guys thought there in the comments. I want to clip this for the sake of, keeping this a little tighter. There's the full interview. What do you think? Who won the battle? Do you think Bertolino won or Banfield? Tell me in the comments down below. If you want to watch the live stream and be involved with us as we do and be part of this community, please consider hitting join. You'll also be able to see the full live stream. We stream multiple hours every day. Fun place to hang out. Community is growing, and I'm so grateful for everybody here. We talk the news, bring it to you. And so support us if you can, or at least hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be able to join the live chats. Hit the bell for all alerts because sometimes they don't go out. Smash that like button while you're at it and let us know in the comments below whose team are you on? Who won that battle? We are not done, live viewers, so don't go anywhere. We got lots more to talk about, including those bones and so much more. So stay tuned. If you're watching on the replay, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.